Hey guys, what's poppin'? My name is Blue Ink and welcome back to the BluGreen Incorporated Zoo. In this episode, we build a habitat for the Komodo dragon. Now, all of this episode was done on stream, so if you guys want to catch my future streams, I'm going to be trying to do it every Saturday when I'm done with my homework. You guys can find a link to my Twitch page in the description of this video. So, since we're building a habitat for the Komodo dragon, let's talk a little bit about them. The Komodo dragon is a carnivorous reptile, and a group of them is called a bank, apparently, but I'm not sure how accurate that is. Now, baby Komodo dragons are called hatchlings, and I'm not sure if adult Komodo dragons have names for them. So, their population is about 3,000 to 3,100, which makes them vulnerable. Although there was something that said their population was 6,000, but I'm not sure how credible that is. They have an unspecified trend to their population, which means we don't know if their population is currently going up or down. As far as size goes, they can be about 10 feet in length, and they can weigh about 330 pounds. They have a pretty hefty lifespan and can live up to 30 years in the wild. Now, their habitat is in Asia, in biomes such as forest and savanna grasslands. They live on only 5 islands in southeastern Indonesia, being the islands of Komodo, Rinca, Gili-Montang, Gili-Dasami, and Flores. Now, when it comes to their social life, they're pretty solitary animals and they only meet to reproduce, meaning a group size of them is equal to 1. Now, for communication, they usually communicate with their behavior, so they'll do ritual walking and have their mouth closed when they're trying to appease each other. When they're displaying that there is a threat, they'll lash their tails, quiver, gape their mouths, and arch their backs. Now, when they're fleeing, they'll lunge, bite, hiss, and defecate, which is a little gross. And contrary to most other animals, they have no mating rituals. They do have some vocalizations, or one vocalization actually. They hiss, which is associated with defensive behavior used during feeding, attacking, and by females during mating. Now, Komodo dragons are hunters since they are carnivores, and their saliva, or it's kind of unknown whether it's saliva or venom, but it's loaded with toxins that lower its victim's blood pressure, can cause massive bleeding, prevent clotting, and induce shock. And once they've bitten their victim, they can calmly follow an escapee for miles as the venom takes effect, and they use their sense of smell to track the corpse. Now, in one single feeding, they can eat up to 80% of their body weight, which is ridiculous. And they'll eat whatever is available, and usually when they hunt, they'll wait in ambush for their prey to pass by, and which point I guess they lunge out and bite. So common prey includes the Timor deer, water buffalo, wild pigs, snakes, and fish that wash up on the shore. And they may also be cannibalistic, which is special. These are special animals. Now, when it comes to conservation, there is the Komodo National Park, which makes up 4 of the 5 islands that Komodos are found on. The islands of Komodo, Rinca, Gili-Montang, and Gili-Dasami in Indonesia. And there's a research and conservation programs with groups like the San Diego Zoo Global. Some fun facts about the Komodo dragon: they have a top speed of 12 miles per hour on land, and they're very good swimmers. Babies spend most of their time in the trees, away from the adults that might eat them. They have 4 times as many males as females in the wild, and they go through 4 or 5 sets of teeth in a lifetime. They may consume 5.5 pounds of meat in 1 minute, that's 2.5 kilograms. They like hot weather and can reproduce sexually and asexually. Now that we're done talking about that, let's talk a little bit about the build. So at this point in the video, you can see I'm making a gate. Now this gate is inspired by the main gates from the movie Jurassic Park. I wasn't sure what to do for this habitat. I was kind of lost and I didn't have any inspiration, and it was recommended by one of our community members, Tomo Rex, that I do a Jurassic Park theme. So for the reptile area of the zoo, I'm going to be doing this Jurassic Park theme. Now this area is going to feature the Komodo dragon, the Nile monitor, the gharial, and I think the Galapagos or Aldabra tortoise. I'm leaning towards Galapagos though, because they're bigger. Now for this gate I used the Arctic DLC pieces. So that's where I got the ruined looking wood, and I actually changed all of the wood in the bison and pronghorn habitat barn to this more old style wood. I ended up using these wall lights. I'm not sure, I might go back to the torch, but I kind of like them, kind of don't. It's complicated. We'll say that, it's complicated. Now doing this on stream with some of you guys was actually really fun, and like I said, I plan on doing that more in the future because I really enjoyed it. At this point, I put a sign there saying Komodo Paradise, but I'm not sure if I'm gonna, I actually deleted those signs because I put more gates kind of actually at the entrance to the area that say Reptile Park. Now I'm not sure if I'm going to keep that name. I'm going to ask some people what they think, ask some people in the community what they think I ought to name the area. So we'll see what it ends up being called. Now I'm going to fill this area with tropical plants instead of the more temperate plants that I've been using to fill in most of the areas up to this point, because it is supposed to be kind of like its own separate area. So when I was putting in the planting, I did that off camera, I made sure that it looked distinguishably different from the rest of the planting. So I also did a stream on Sunday, even though it was not in my schedule. I just did it for fun, and we did a little bit of work in the road areas. I put in some more curbs, made sure everything was all good, put in some planting in that median. I think that's what it's called, but I'm still not sure. And I haven't been sure for like the past week, so who knows. Okay, so this, like, in the video, I'm putting in some rocks and kind of covering them with terrain work and painting the terrain. That was a technique that I learned from Mike Sheets, once again. If you want to see his video where he does this, look up Mike Sheets' Garden Rescue Geekism, because it was in the Garden Rescue episode he did for Geekism's Park, Nunakanata. But I think it works really well. I didn't make it as realistic as Mike does it in his videos. I just wanted it to look like rock faces. Oop. Yep, it was at this point that the game crashed, so that was a bit unfortunate. Luckily, it auto-saved, so I didn't have to worry too much about it. I just had a little bit of work that I needed to redo. But it wasn't too tragic, which is a good thing. So I made an effort to make these look like they were actual rock walls, and I think it turned out relatively well. I'm going to try doing this a little bit more in the future, but it didn't really matter how realistic it looked at this point because I knew I was just going to be covering them all up with with planting. I knew I was just going to be covering them up with planting, so I didn't worry about it too much. And I did actually put a little pond here up at the top. I used the glass barrier trick. It took me a little bit to figure out how I wanted to do that. How I wanted to do it, but I did figure it out eventually, and I used that glass barrier trick that I know but always seem to forget. So hopefully I'll remember it more in the future. Yeah, right here is where I finally figured out how to do it. Sorry if the video is a little bit fast. I did take a long time building this, so it's a little bit sped up. Let me know if in the future you want me to speed it up this much, or if you want to just have the longer video. Because I know that there is some concern with the lemur video where it was very, very much sped up and it was a little hard to watch. So just give me your thoughts on that. too sure what I want to do because it was voted on my Discord server that the episode length should be about 10 to 15 minutes. So I'm trying to stick to that as best I can. So I put in this little cave here that's supposed to be in like a sort of underground viewing area where guests can go and look in and see the Komodo dragons sleeping. And they actually do sleep in there quite a bit. It's kind of interesting considering they like the sun so much. So the Komodo dragons in-game are pretty cool. I had bought 2 gold Komodo dragons and just put them in the quarantine, well not quarantine, it's a holding facility that I built. And I just put them in there and just kind of left them in there, and I had animal notifications turned off because they get really obnoxious and they're usually nothing half the time. So when I went to get the Komodo dragons so I could put them in the habitat, I realized that they had been breeding because I hadn't turned it off like I thought I had. So I looked in there and there were, no joke, I am not exaggerating in any way, like seriously, I'm not, there were 80 Komodo dragons in there. 80. 8-0. And that was an interesting moment. I don't think that was clipped on the stream, but I might go back and clip it just because it was pretty funny. So, here you can see I'm putting in some more of the detail for the actual rest of the habitat. I put this little rock bridge in there. They don't really use it, but it's still kind of cool looking, so I'll leave it. I painted it as best I could to make it look like it was kind of like sandy grassy, whilst also meeting their requirements. And I was surprised they run. Oh yeah, there, you can see I was, oh, well, that's not supposed to be there. That's on there on accident. Just ignore that. That was from the stream, and I forgot to take it off apparently. I'll try to do better about that in the future. Oh, a bit of a jump right there. I made this retaining wall to kind of make it make sense that there was this, there's a higher ground right there, but make it look like that without it being plausible for the Komodo dragons to escape that way. I still tried, but it didn't work. So I made this retaining wall out of the plaster pieces, and the entire wall of the habitat is made out of the plaster pieces because they're not on a grid. So if the wall looks, that's a lot of Komodo dragons. Anyway, if the wall looks a little bit thin, that's why. I might make it a little bit thicker. I haven't decided on that yet. So I was actually a little bit surprised that the Komodo dragons do not have any required water space, but they actually enjoy going through the water relatively often. So I'm kind of glad I decided to put that water feature in there, since they are local to islands and they do swim quite a bit in the wild. Now I wasn't able to use much many references from actual zoos in this for this build, because Komodo dragon habitats in zoos are very sad. They are boxes with plants in them, and that's pretty much it. That's about all. Now I think that's about as, like, for animals that will probably murder you if they get the chance, I'm thinking that's probably as good as they can do to having something that's maintainable, even though they can't really get into it. I'm assuming they can't really, I'm not sure. Can Komodo dragons be trained to leave an area so keepers can get into it and clean it? That is a question for someone who actually works at a zoo. So if anyone potentially ever works at a zoo that you know, ask them, do they train Komodo dragons? That's a good question. Anyway, I kind of made it seem like the planting was coming out of the habitat so that it wasn't just in there, like it seemed like it was, like it makes the guests feel like they're in the habitat with the animals, which might not be the best feeling to have when the animal is extremely deadly. But I mean, it increases the immersion and makes it feel like more real, I guess. Oh yeah, that's a two-headed baby. I was just there were some issues with the clipping there, but other than that, the babies are still pretty cool. I just have aging turned off for now, so there's just about like I think 15 left that aren't going anywhere anytime soon. I tried to put some benches in here to make the area feel a little bit more inviting, so like people can actually sit in there and watch the Komodo dragons. Even though when they're in there, the Komodo dragons aren't really doing much, so there's not much of a reason. I tried to put a sign here, but it doesn't quite look right. I mean, I just moved it over and kind of left it like that, so it's still there, and I'm not sure if I'm going to get rid of it or not, but we'll see. Anyway, that's kind of the end of this video. I hope you guys enjoyed. If you did, please leave a like and subscribe if you're new. If you guys want to see me building this in real time, be sure to check out my Twitch page, link in the description. And if you guys want to see some more screenshots of the things that I build, that's on my Instagram, also link in the description. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you later.